It's time to end the debate. What's the best fishing line to use with your big glide baits and big swim baits? I think the big thing you have to understand is that each type of line has their strengths and weaknesses, and really it's going to come down to personal preference. So let's start with braid to leader. Braid to leader is going to be a great all-around option because you get both of the benefits of braid, but also the benefits of fluorocarbon. The big thing is braid on its own is really never a good idea, especially with these bigger glide baits. If you're going to fish something smaller, around an ounce or less, you can get by with like 30, 40-pound braid. However, when we're throwing these big glide baits, we do want to bump up that braid quite a bit. And it's not really because if we catch a big fish on lighter braid, we're not going to be able to reel it in. The biggest issue with glide baits is because of their shape, what you run into a lot of the times is you can backlash in midair pretty badly, and when you're trying to get a big long cast out of your glide bait, your reel is going to get a backlash and all of a sudden your line's going to stop moving. And on a lighter braid, say like 20 to 30 pound, and with a 20 to 30 pound braid, even on like a 2-ounce glide bait, that sudden stopping can pop the knot on your glide bait and then send your glide bait flying into the next dimension. So what I recommend is going up to like a 50 or 65-pound test braid and then going to a mono or fluorocarbon leader or even copolymer. That longer leader is going to help absorb that shock, especially as like a mono or a copoly or even some fluorocarbons. But what about in the water? And right here, you can see the big difference between the braid and then like a copolymer or even fluorocarbon will do this. It's that memory, right? So the big thing with braid is that in the water, braid will float generally, but over time it'll start to sink because it'll take on water, but it doesn't have that same amount of memory, which is really great because you can use braid for a really long time. You'll get a little bit of floating. It's really great on suspending glide bait, but when you work that glide bait, you're going to feel a lot more of a direct kind of connection to your bait, get a sharper cut. Then what about fluorocarbon? Fluorocarbon's great. It's more expensive, but the thing that's nice with fluorocarbon is that you don't have to worry about tying a connecting knot, but also fluorocarbon is going to sink. So if you're trying to fish a sinking glide bait into deeper water, having that sink is a little nice. And kind of how I mentioned earlier was the coiling in that fluorocarbon or in that monofilament. When you work your glide bait, your line is going to naturally want to contract and give a little slack to your bait, and you're going to get a really nice cutting action. The bait will kind of have a spring almost to work, and if you're working really slowly with your glide baits, this may be a plus or a minus. Once you work that glide bait, that line's going to start to want to coil up again, and your bait's going to start to face forward. And generally, like with a glide bait of this size, or even the smaller ones, like a 14-pound to 16-pound test fluorocarbon will be plenty. But if you're fishing like big 8-inch, 10-inch glide baits that are getting up in that 5-6 ounce weight range, then we're going to be bumping up to 20-pound tests for sure. So the big thing is just to try out all the different lines. Even right now, I have a reel with monofilament, a reel with braid to leader, a reel with straight fluorocarbon, and I go between the three and just kind of work it out and try to find the type of line that works best for my situation, but also how I like to fish. So what are you waiting for? Get out there.